have been leapfrogged by others, by digital currency, by digital Chinese currency. Why? Because, frankly, our central bank has been slow. And there's an appointment coming in January of 22. The president's got to decide whether to change over who's leading the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve runs our payment system. And I think we need to move that Federal Reserve into the modern era.
Sell it eventually, Michael. I mean, let's be honest. Most of the people who are, yes, sure, some people pass it on to their children. But, like, most of the people who are buying assets at some point want to sell the assets at a profit. So let me say it a different way. Okay. People that use fiat currency as a store of value, there's a name for them. We call them poor. Okay?
Well, listen, there's a mindset shift, right? That all of a sudden the U.S. has broadly endorsed Bitcoin, right? You think about what's going on in D.C., this is a vote, right? The American people have just voted, and they have voted. They like Bitcoin and they like digital assets. And so Washington needs to get off the stick, get off the couch and start doing something, right? This is going to be an issue for Democrats in this election who have been perceived to be standing in the way of Bitcoin in races like Ohio and in Montana, the Senate races. You know, the crypto pack is putting in money. And so I think that's what you're seeing. You're seeing baby boomers get their first shot, right, through the RIA channel. Like there's $80 billion or $80 trillion of baby boomer wealth, and they're putting a small amount in. And Bitcoiners don't like to sell. Like they often think of their net worth and how many coins they have, not how many dollars they have.
That doesn't explain gold, Mike.
Well, listen, gold's going up as well. We have a political situation where both candidates seem to want to spend a whole lot of money. Right. You know, when Biden's deficit or Biden's budget came out with a trillion plus deficit, and that doesn't engender a lot of spirit when it comes to wanting fiscal prudence, right? Bitcoin has always been a report card on fiscal stewardship, and we've got no stewardship in DC right now.
And we're cutting.
And this move is mostly adoption, and the other is macro. And the macro factors are, right, the Fed, but it's also, and it's mostly Congress and the budget, right? We are running deficits that are in crises levels.
Right.
And when you look at our fiscal system,
I think we're going to both agree it's the adoption issue right this very moment.
100%.
It's more about adoption than it is about anything else, and it's adoption via the ETF, and therefore we have like a supply and demand problem.
And having.
Prices are set on the margin. Right?
You can throw in the halving. Let me ask you this. Ethereum right now has moved in a big way. Part of that is on the back now of speculation or of an expectation somehow that we're going to have a Ethereum ETF and that is going to create a similar kind of dynamic. Do you think that that's the right way to think about it? And do you actually think that there will be an Ethereum ETF?
Listen, I think there's a fierce debate inside the SEC right now, right? I mean, Gary Gensler, before he was at the SEC, is on tape saying Ethereum is definitely not a security. Since he's been at the SEC, he hasn't made a ruling on it. And I think what the SEC is doing is debating, can they call Ethereum a security with this idea that it changed when it went from proof of work, right, for validation to proof of stake. If they can't make that argument, and I think it's a tough argument to make, they have to, they're going to approve the ETF because it's the same argument that won the Bitcoin ETF. There already is a futures Ethereum ETF. And so if you have it for futures, you have to have it for cash. That's what the court said last time.
Mike, who takes that case to court? Is that a Coinbase case? I don't even know. It's funny. Grayscale, which is effectively put this into business as an ETF, I don't know if that's actually been good or bad for Grayscale long term.
Yeah. Listen, I think if you're Barry Silbert and you own a whole lot of Bitcoin, a whole lot of shares in your own ETF, and the price goes up, 100%, you're pretty happy. And so, right, that court case crunched the discount from minus 40 to zero, and it drove Bitcoin prices up. And so the Grayscale holders are thrilled with that lawsuit. And I think the same would be true in Ethereum.
35? It's at 35. Is it going to 30? All right. It's now at 30. Is it going to 20? So we went from 20,000 to 2,000. We went from 65,000 to 17,000. We're now at 73,000. Are we past where, because of this adoption you talked about, Are we past the point of it going back down to 20,000 and then back up? Do you think?
Listen, I think so, but this has been a wild ride of an asset. We're in price discovery mode right now, and if you're looking at the charts, you could see 100,000, like that could be a target, but you don't know when you're in price discovery mode because we had $1 billion of inflows last night into the ETF complex. As long as that is positive, the price is going to keep grinding higher. Once that becomes negative, you'll see the first real correction. And so I think right now every trader is watching, add up the 9 ETFs and see what the net is. And as long as there's inflows. Now, of course, there's lots of other inflows and outflows in the Bitcoin universe. But right now, that's got the zeitgeist of what people are making their trading decisions off of. Things are frothy. Funding rates are high. And so in times like this, you always have to be ready for a correction. I don't think we go back below 50, 55,000. I think that's the new floor unless something dramatic happens.
See, I thought you were out of that business. I don't know if I.
Hey, Mike, one of the things that's so interesting is most of the inflows seem to be coming in via the ETF. It's an interesting way to play this, if you will. But if everybody ultimately is buying in via the ETF, and if that becomes sort of the majority approach to touching this quote-unquote asset, there's a question about what the asset is doing, right?
Well, listen, market cap at 74,000 is what $1.5 trillion, and I think ETF is 40 billion, and so it's still a very small percentage of Bitcoin's price. The genius of Bitcoin really is that Satoshi white paper, which sets the monetary policy for this ecosystem in code. And in a world where, look at the Nigerian currency, pull it up on your chart. And so if you're in Nigeria, it's interesting in almost now in every country on earth, Bitcoin has made an all-time high, but in some of the charts, it's staggering how much wealth it preserved. And until you get countries that run more credible fiscal policy, people are going to want to buy that story. And it's a story that's spreading.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And make sure you're joining the Patrons. If you're not a part of the Patrons, make sure you're hitting the Cash App. And we have Michael Saylor on Bitcoin. Don't sell. People who use fiat as a store of value, he calls them poor. Unless it's Warren Buffett or Apple. And don't forget the United States dollar is still the world reserve currency. And when it comes to a great asset, yes, you want to sell a little and you keep a little. We see CEOs selling shares left and right. Now we have Michael Saylor getting in on it yesterday. And then, guys, we have Mike Novogratz speaking about Bitcoin. And guys, don't forget Bitcoin was supposed to get rid of the banks. And now you have the puppets in the mainstream media, and then also the puppets in crypto, and it's a lot of them, cheering on BlackRock. But remember, guys, the big banks and big corporations were funding crypto from the beginning. And all the turmoil that we have going around the globe, we know we can point to the central banks. And the central banks are doing what? Buying gold. Guys, always diversify yourself. And yes, we have the halving coming up, so we're going to get a lot of hype around it, but we've never pumped around the halving. And then Mike Novogratz speaks about the Ethereum spot ETF. And again, the courts keep popping up. That means that we're going to get another movie. And they talk about all the volatility in Bitcoin. Remember, guys, the banks make money whether it goes up or down. And then Mike Novogratz brings up Nigeria. And guys, we have Binance Nigeria movie going on. And the narrative is that the crypto exchange is helping to wreck their currency. And don't forget, guys, the central banks in Nigeria were pushing the CBDC. Wanted them to get off the dollar. And then, of course, the people turned to stable coins. And we know the NWO caused the problem, wait for the reaction, and run in with the solution. And they asked, will crypto cause a currency crisis around the globe? And we know crypto is going to be used as a scapegoat in order for these small and medium-sized banks to fall. And Mackenzie does happen to be in Africa as this Nigeria movie goes on. The two guys are not being arrested, they're not being charged, but they're detained. Yes, it sounds like a movie, but remember, guys, your life is an illusion and TV is your reality. And remember, the crypto teacher told you, because he knows when it comes to the NWO, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
Nigeria just using Bitcoin as a scapegoat, or will crypto cause currency crises in other developing nations? Let's talk about it with CNBC technology reporter Mackenzie Sagalos, who was recently in Nigeria covering crypto, and former Binance chief strategy officer Patrick Hillman. Mackenzie, first to you. Most people are probably hearing this story for the very first time, so it's just kind of in a basic way, what's going on?
So 3 weeks ago, when all of this started, I was in Africa, and the conversation was really around whether this was a wider crackdown by Nigeria on crypto, or if this was about singling out a bad actor. And the consensus kind of converged on the fact that this is really about singling out a player, Binance. It's now an easy target. They recently settled with the U.S. government for $4.3 billion to avoid further repercussions in the United States. And what you're looking at is these two officials who are being held are essentially functioning as leverage, because Nigeria says that they want information on the top 100 traders in Nigeria using Binance's platform and their full transaction history for the last 6 months. And as you said, neither of these employees has been charged. And interestingly, neither really has any decision-making power. So I will say this, even though it does seem to be that they're targeting Binance here, it's also not a good look for Nigeria. It doesn't really say I'm open for business, and it certainly has a chilling effect in terms of foreign investment.
Policies have caused the collapse of their own currency.
Well, look, let's be really frank here. The facts are really easy to identify. When the Tinubu regime decided to float the Naira from the US dollar, to float it from the peg, the value of the Naira dropped 29% in just 24 hours, which basically sent their currency into free fall. So what do if you're Nigerian? You move your money into any other currency you can that's more stable. So their first stop was to go to the US dollar. But then the regime decided to restrict access to the US dollar, which is what sent Nigerians fleeing to crypto stablecoins. So this is in no way a reflection or a response to crypto being actively traded in the country. This is an attempt by a government to try and deflect from what was a very poor monetary decision in order to hopefully try and circumvent any sort of political repercussions of this. And to Mackenzie's point, this looks like a state-sponsored kidnapping. These two employees have absolutely no authority over their employers' the processes and regulations and in any region, let alone Nigeria's. They were welcomed to come to this meeting by the regime themselves, and once they arrived, based on reporting, they were apprehended and have been held against their will in an undisclosed government location. So, this has all of the markings of a failed government that is doing everything it possibly can to try and avoid any sort of little political repercussions for their own negative monetary policy.
But Mackenzie,
Brian, one other
go ahead.
Point here. The Nigerian government has also taken issue with Binance's peer-to-peer market. They were afraid that there was collusion happening with traders in order to skew the price of the Naira when they were going in and out of US dollar peg stablecoins. So that also was a part of the calculus here, Brian.
You were just there. I wonder if this is sort of an effort to calm any public outcry, because my guess is the folks that are buying the crypto in the first place are from that first group of the wealthier that I just mentioned, while the rest of the nation has to suffer with a currency that it's not quite there yet, but may literally be not worth the paper it is printed on.
Yeah, if you look at the dynamics since the pandemic, the peg to the US dollar used to be 360 Naira. It's now north of 1,600. As you said, there are a lot of the wealth disparity is just tremendous in the country right now. And so crypto in general is an easier scapegoat. That being said, this narrative that Nigeria is cracking down on crypto just isn't right. You saw the central bank, which has historically been pretty hostile to the sector, actually ease up on its policy in December, saying that banks could now work with crypto entities. The SEC in Nigeria in February began accepting applications from these virtual asset service providers. So there does seem to be this changing dynamic under the new president who just took power last January. So that's one thing that's at play here. But As you said, there is so much wealth that is fleeing into crypto because people want some form of dollar exposure, and they're getting that through USD peg stablecoins like Tether.
Going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of the huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in in ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we can have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Chinese bank ICBC has been hit by a ransomware attack, and the U.S. Treasury market, as a result of that, has been disrupted. This, according to the Financial Times. We're getting more right now with Bloomberg's Shonali Bassick. Shonali, what do we know?
Listen, we have the Financial Times now reporting that ICBC, one of China's largest banks here, was hit with a ransomware attack. And remember, they're a very significant intermediary in the Treasury market. The SIFMA has told its members that this has been part of the reason here that the system is kind of clogged up, if you will, during that auction that we saw a little bit before. The attack had prevented ICBC, according to the Financial Times, from settling Treasury trades on behalf of other market participants. A large executive at a major bank also telling the paper that such a large party on the fixed income clearing corp creates major concerns, potentially impacting the liquidity of Treasury markets.
Now, it was not just a poor auction. It was absolutely lousy, and when the dealers have to step in to save a treasury auction, that's a rare occurrence. And
very much a traditionalist. I like staying with the dollar. You know that from when I was there. It's make the dollar the choice. I hate when countries go off the dollar. I would not allow countries to go off the dollar, because when we lose that standard, that will be like losing a revolutionary war. That will be a hit to our country, just like losing a war. And we can't let that happen. And too many countries now are fighting to get off the dollar. And
Cryptoteacher and the new World Order book Plus, the 3 kids' books is time to re-educate. Also, if new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance, do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get home stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing, they were still getting that free money. What are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids' books. You know I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Drama Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Drama Tam save New York from COVID 33. Part 3. King Joshua and Drama Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.
Digital currency, by digital Chinese currency. Why? Because, frankly, our central bank has been slow. And there's an appointment coming in January of 22. The president's got to decide whether to change over who's leading the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve runs our payment system. And I think we need to move that Federal Reserve into the modern era.
What about